2 weeks ago, Toto Wolff stood in the Austrian paddock and took a shot at Ferrari. He said Ferrari must be running out of cost cap money, that hopefully, by the end of the season, they won't be able to bring any more parts, that the logic says their upgrade rate cannot continue. He called Ferrari limitless and made it sound like a problem they would eventually have to answer for. Then Lewis Hamilton walked into a Silverstone press conference and answered for them. He did not defend Ferrari's cost cap spending. He did not mention Wolff by name. He simply pointed at Mercedes, his former team, his former boss, his co-passenger on the post-race private jet, and said their engines are heading for penalties, that at some point there must be a grid drop, that he doesn't know the exact situation on the battery side for George and Kimi, but he knows the maths. And the maths says Mercedes cannot get to Abu Dhabi without putting fresh components in their cars. Wolff jabbed at Ferrari's spending. Hamilton jabbed back at Mercedes's engines. Two people who still share a plane home and text each other about dating decisions, trading press conference blows in the most polite verbal war in Formula One history. And one of those jabs is about to land in a very specific way. At Spa, this Sunday. So what is the plan, and what does it do to the title? Start with Juan Pablo Montoya, because he is the one who said the quiet part loudest. After Barcelona, after Antonelli's second battery failure of the season, Montoya told F1.com exactly what Mercedes is weighing up. He said, when you start getting grid penalties, the points are going to flip. If you're going for a championship and you have to take 5 or 10 place penalties, it's going to make your day a lot harder. So he guarantees we will see Mercedes taking a penalty for extra equipment at Spa and races like that, just to make sure they're in a better position for the end of the year. Read that carefully. He is not predicting Mercedes will be forced to take a penalty from a failure. He is predicting they will choose to take one, voluntarily, at Spa, to protect their engines for the second half of the championship. That is a completely different story from the reliability narrative every outlet is running. A team that chooses a grid drop is a team that has already done the maths and decided losing positions at Spa costs less than losing engines at Monza, Singapore, or Abu Dhabi. And Hamilton, who spent 12 years inside that garage, who knows exactly how Wolff and his engineers think, just told the world they are already there. Here is what the reliability data actually shows. Russell was leading the Canadian Grand Prix, leading with clean air when his battery unit failed completely. The car went back to Brixworth for a teardown. 3 weeks later in Barcelona, Antonelli was running second, hunting down Hamilton in the final laps when his battery failed the same way, back to Brixworth. 2 separate failures, 2 separate drivers, both traced back to the same category of component stress. But there is something else in the background that makes this specific to 2026. Going into this season, Mercedes were at the center of a major technical controversy. They had found a way to exploit the compression ratio rules, measuring the 16:1 limit only in cold, static conditions, which gave them a meaningful power advantage over rivals who measured it in operating temperatures. Ferrari, Honda, and Audi lobbied the FIA. The rules were changed from June 1st. The loophole closed, and the question every rival is now asking is whether the battery failures Mercedes are experiencing are connected to how hard they pushed the power unit architecture in those first 5 races when the loophole was still legal. Ferrari and Mercedes have used the same number of electrical components on paper. But paper does not show how many of those components are still usable. Russell's Canada battery went for a full teardown. Antonelli's Barcelona battery the same. Ferrari's components have all finished races. The pools look equal in the table. They are not equal in practice. And with a maximum of 3 energy stores per driver across the entire season, losing 2 to failures that require factory inspection changes the arithmetic completely. When a team has 1 confirmed clean energy store left and 13 races to go, the question is not whether to introduce a fresh component. The question is which race to take the hit. Mercedes will deny this publicly. Wolff will say they are focused on the next race. That is how every team responds to this question. But the 2026 regulations have a specific detail that makes the strategic choice even more defined. Teams are no longer permitted to make performance-motivated engine changes. The rules were tightened precisely to prevent what used to happen in earlier seasons, when a car qualifying badly would take a fresh engine in the garage, absorb the grid penalty, and benefit from the added power of an unmileaged unit. The FIA closed that route for 2026. Any new component introduced must be justified on reliability grounds. The documentation has to exist. The failure data has to support it, which means if Mercedes introduces a fourth energy store at Spa, they have to declare it a reliability necessity. The teardown reports from Canada and Barcelona provide that justification. They are not choosing to take a performance hit in exchange for fresh power. They are using legitimate reliability data to protect their season. The distinction matters, but the result looks identical from the outside. Both drivers start from the back. Hamilton does not need to win. Hamilton knows this. He said he does not know the exact situation on the battery side for George and Kimi, but he said at some point there must be a penalty. That hedge is deliberate. He is not confirming the plan from inside the garage. He is reading the same FIA power unit usage table that is publicly available, the same table that shows equal numbers but does not show which units are still in the pool, and doing the same calculation every engineer in the paddock is quietly running. That is what Hamilton exposed, not a secret meeting, not a leaked document, a gap between what the numbers show and what the numbers mean. And Mercedes cannot close that gap without making a decision at Spa. Subscribe now. When the Spa grid sheets drop Friday morning, the power unit changes column will either confirm Hamilton's read or contradict it. That analysis goes up before qualifying. You need to be here. Hamilton is 32 points behind Antonelli. Spa is the last race before the summer break. If Mercedes takes a voluntary penalty at Spa, 10 places for Antonelli, 10 for Russell, or both, Hamilton does not need to win. He needs to finish third or second while both silver cars fight through the midfield. In a single Sunday afternoon, 32 points becomes 10 or 15. The summer break arrives with a completely different championship. If Mercedes holds, keeps their current components, and takes their chances on reliability, they are gambling that 13 more races of high-load running does not repeat Canada or Barcelona. Spa is an energy-poor circuit. The MGUK runs near depletion by the end of Kemmel. It is one of the most demanding tracks on the remaining calendar for battery components that are already under stress. Mercedes have the fastest car. Hamilton has the best circuit knowledge of anyone at Spa, 6 wins, more than any other active driver. Neither of those facts change, but the grid on Sunday morning might. And if it does, Hamilton did not just predict it. He told you 6 days ago it was coming. Was he right? And if Mercedes does take the penalty, does 32 points become a gap that changes what the second half of this season looks like? Give me the exact calculation below. Subscribe, and the Spa grid analysis drops Friday before qualifying.